Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Nature channel. Take a slow, deep breath with me and let it out gently. Tonight, we're going to visit the quietest places on Earth, the mirror lakes. These are waters so still, so perfectly calm, that the whole world reflects in them twice. The sky becomes the lake becomes the sky, and somewhere between them, you can find the softest kind of peace. Let yourself settle in. There's nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to do. Just listen and let these gentle waters carry you towards sleep. Mirror lakes exist in hidden valleys, tucked between mountains where the wind forgets to blow. In these sheltered places, the water lies completely undisturbed, like a sheet of glass stretched across the earth. When you stand at the edge of such a lake, you see two worlds at once, the real one above and its perfect twin below. Sometimes it's impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins. The stillness of a mirror lake is not an empty thing. It's full of presence, full of quiet attention. The water holds the image of every cloud that drifts overhead, every branch that reaches out above it. It doesn't choose what to reflect. It simply receives everything with equal tenderness and shows it back to the world. In the early morning, before the sun has fully risen, mirror lakes wear a soft gray light. The sky is pale and uncertain, somewhere between darkness and day. The water matches it exactly, becoming a pathway into dawn. If you were there, standing on the shore with the cool air touching your face, you might feel like you're suspended between two skies, held gently in the breathing space of morning. As the first light arrives, it doesn't burst or rush. It seeps in slowly, like honey spreading across bread. The eastern edge of the lake catches a hint of gold first, just a whisper of warmth along the water's surface. Then the color deepens, spreading outward in rings of amber and rose. The lake drinks in these colors and gives them back, doubled. Two sunrises happen at once. Birds know about mirror lakes. They arrive in the quiet hours, moving through the air with barely a sound. A heron might stand at the water's edge, one long leg bent, perfectly still. And in the lake below, another heron stands too, upside down, but just as patient. The two birds wait together, connected by their shared stillness. Both real, both reflections of the same gentle moment. When a single leaf falls from a tree beside a mirror lake, it creates a small event. The leaf drifts down through the air, turning slowly, catching light on its surface. It touches the water with the softest kiss, so gentle that the lake barely notices. A tiny ripple spreads outward in perfect circles, disturbing the reflection for just a moment before the stillness returns. The leaf floats there, cradled by the surface, and now it has a twin beneath it, the two leaves almost touching through the thin skin of water. Some mirror lakes are cupped in the palms of mountains. These are alpine lakes, sitting high above the world, where the air is thin and clear. The mountains rise around them like protective walls, keeping the wind away. In these high places, the water is so pure you can see stones on the bottom even when the lake is deep. And when you look at the surface, you see the mountain peaks twice, once rising up into the sky and once diving down into blue depths. The water of a mirror lake is often cold, even in summer. It comes from snowmelt, from streams that begin as ice high on the mountain slopes. This cold water is heavy and calm. It doesn't want to move. It settles into the lake basin and stays there, growing stiller and stiller until it becomes a perfect mirror. If you dipped your hand into it, you'd feel that coolness travel up your arm, waking every nerve with its clean, bright touch. Throughout the day, the light changes, and the mirror lake changes with it. Late morning brings a different quality, sharper, more defined. The clouds that drift overhead appear in the lake with such clarity that you could count every detail, every wisp and curve. White clouds, gray clouds, clouds that look like brush strokes of cream across blue canvas. All of them have twins in the water, moving at the same pace, breathing with the same slow rhythm. If you've been enjoying this gentle journey, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And if this is bringing you peace, a small like helps others find this calm space too. Fish live in mirror lakes, though you might never know it. They move in the deeper water, far below the reflected sky. Sometimes, if you watch carefully, you might see a subtle shadow pass beneath the surface, a trout gliding through the underwater world, unaware that above it, clouds are drifting. The fish knows only the cool darkness, the smooth stones, the filtered light that reaches down from above. It's a life lived entirely beneath a sky that isn't sky at all, but water holding an image of sky. Trees growing beside mirror lakes develop a special relationship with their reflections. A pine tree standing tall on the shore reaches upward with its branches, needles dark green and dense. In the lake, its reflection reaches downward just as far, creating a complete tree. One half in air, one half in water. When the wind is perfectly still, the two halves meet at the waterline, and for a moment, the tree is whole and endless. Dragonflies understand mirror lakes in ways we can only imagine. They skim across the surface on transparent wings, hunting for smaller insects. To a dragonfly, the lake is a hunting ground and a puzzle. It sees the reflection of the sky below and the real sky above, and somehow navigates between these two realities without confusion. Its wings catch the light and throw tiny rainbow flashes into the air and onto the water, little sparks of color that vanish as quickly as they appear. The rocks that line the shores of mirror lakes are often smooth and round, worn by water and time. Some are gray, some are speckled with lichen. Those patient organisms that grow so slowly you'd never see them move, even if you watched for years. The lichen creates soft patterns on the stone, circles and patches of pale green and yellow. When these rocks sit half in and half out of the water, they create gentle shapes in the reflection, anchoring the mirror world to the real one. In places where mirror lakes are fed by underground springs, the water enters so quietly that it creates no disturbance. The spring pushes up from below, adding its clear water to the lake in silence. This water is often warmer than you'd expect, or sometimes colder, depending on where it traveled through the earth. But it always arrives gently, joining the lake without breaking the mirror, becoming part of the stillness. Moss grows in the shadows beside mirror lakes, in places where the sun doesn't quite reach. This moss is soft as cloud, thick as carpet. It holds moisture like a sponge, creating tiny ecosystems of dampness and green. If you sat on the bank and pressed your hand into this moss, it would give beneath your palm, cool and yielding, and then slowly spring back when you lifted your hand away. The sky above a mirror lake is often more visible than the sky above other places because you see it twice. Once when you look up And once when you look down, you become more aware of its vastness, its changing moods. Clouds become important here. Each one is a visitor, a temporary guest in the lake's reflection. Some clouds are so thin they barely leave an image. Others are so full and heavy with moisture that they dominate both sky and water, creating a world of gray softness. Our playlist has many more peaceful journeys like this one. Each one is a different path to the same gentle rest. When insects fly above a mirror lake, they sometimes become confused by the double world. A mayfly, emerging from the water after years as a nymph, takes to the air for the first time and sees another mayfly below it, flying upside down. The two insects mirror each other's every movement, joined by the surface of the lake. For the brief day or two that the mayfly lives in its winged form, it dances with this companion, neither one more real than the other. Sunset at a mirror lake is a doubled gift. The western sky fills with color, orange melting into pink, pink bleeding into purple, purple fading into the deep blue of coming night. And all of this happens twice. The lake catches every shade, every gradual shift of light. The colors in the water are often even richer than the colors in the sky, because the water adds its own depth, its own darkness beneath the reflection. You stand between two sunsets wrapped in light that comes from above and below. The silence of a mirror lake is not the absence of sound. It's a specific kind of quiet, the sound of water being still, of air moving so slowly it barely whispers. Sometimes you can hear the gentle lap of the tiniest wave against the shore, a sound so soft it's almost imagined. Or the call of a bird far across the lake, traveling over the water with perfect clarity. These sounds don't break the silence. They're part of it, woven into it like threads in soft fabric. As evening deepens, the light withdraws slowly. The colors fade from the sky and from the lake's reflection. Everything becomes softer, gentler. The mirror begins to darken, turning from blue to deep gray, from gray to something close to black. But even in this darkness, the lake still reflects. It catches the last light of the day and holds it for a few moments longer, unwilling to let go of the sun completely. And with this growing darkness, you can let yourself drift deeper into rest. The stars begin to appear one by one, first in the sky, then in the lake below. Each star has its twin, and as more stars emerge, the lake becomes a bowl filled with light. You could lie on your back beside the water and see stars all around you, above your head and at your feet, encircling you with their ancient, steady glow. In winter, mirror lakes transform into something new while keeping their essential nature. When ice forms on the surface, it often freezes so clear and smooth that it becomes a different kind of mirror, solid instead of liquid, but just as reflective. The first ice is the most beautiful. It's thin and transparent, and beneath it, you can still see the water and everything the water holds. The ice reflects the sky, but it also lets you look down through it into the depths. Snow falls on mirror lakes in absolute silence. Each flake drifts down, landing on the ice or on the unfrozen water with no sound at all. The flakes that land on the ice stay visible, each one a tiny star of crystal. The flakes that land on open water disappear instantly, melting into the lake, becoming part of it. It's one of nature's quietest transformations. Solid becoming liquid, snowflake becoming water. in the span of a heartbeat. The ice on a mirror lake can be so clear that walking on it feels like walking on sky. You step out from the shore carefully, and beneath your feet, you see down into the water. The rocks on the bottom, the pale sand, perhaps a fish suspended in the cold liquid. And if you look up, you see the sky. You're caught between two worlds again, held in a layer of ice so transparent it seems to disappear. When the ice begins to thaw in spring, it creates sounds that travel for miles. The ice cracks and groans as it expands and contracts with changing temperatures. These sounds are like music from another world, deep booms, high singing tones, long creaks that seem to speak some ancient language. The lake is waking up, stretching, preparing to become liquid again, to become a mirror once more. Spring arrives at mirror lakes in layers. First, the ice along the edges melts, creating a ring of open water around the frozen center. Then, the ice in the middle begins to break apart, forming floating islands of white against dark blue. These ice pieces drift slowly, reflecting clouds and sky from their smooth surfaces, until they too melt and disappear. And then the lake is fully awake, ready for another season of reflection. The water in springtime is full of life returning. Tiny organisms bloom in numbers too vast to count. They're so small, you'd never see an individual one, but together they can turn the water slightly green or give it a subtle cloudiness. This is the lake feeding itself, preparing for the summer, building the foundation of its ecosystem from the bottom up. Frogs come to mirror lakes to sing. They gather at the edges where plants grow up through the shallow water, and they call to each other in rhythms that pulse like heartbeats. Each species has its own song. Some sound like deep drums, some like high bells, some like wood being rubbed together. At night, the whole lake can vibrate with their music. It's a sound that speaks of water, of breeding, of life insisting on itself. If you're finding peace here, I'd be grateful if you'd leave a comment. It helps this channel grow and brings more people to these calm waters. The plants that grow in and around mirror lakes have learned to live half in water, half in air. Cattails stand tall with their brown seed heads, their roots deep in mud beneath the surface. Lily pads float on the water, perfectly designed to rest on that boundary between liquid and air. Each pad is a small raft, and beneath it, a long stem stretches down to the bottom, anchoring it in place. The lily's white or yellow flower opens to the sky, and in the lake's reflection, another flower blooms upside down. Turtles sun themselves on logs that jut out from the shore of mirror lakes. They climb up slowly, using their strong claws to grip the wet wood, and then they settle into stillness. A turtle can remain motionless for hours, soaking in warmth. Its shell, dark and patterned, is a small mountain range of its own. Sometimes several turtles will share a log, lined up like beads on a string, all facing the same direction, all absorbing the same quiet sunlight. The air above a mirror lake has its own quality. It's humid but fresh, carrying the scent of water and green growing things. If you breathe it in, you can taste it, a coolness on the back of your tongue, clean and faintly sweet. This is air that has passed over water, that has been filtered and gentled by its journey across the lake's surface. Mist forms over mirror lakes in the early morning, especially in autumn, when the air grows cold, but the water still holds summer's warmth. The mist rises in soft columns and sheets, blurring the boundary between water and sky. It drifts across the surface like a living thing, gathering in some places, thinning in others. When the sun rises and touches this mist, it glows. The whole lake becomes a field of light, soft and diffused, neither fully there nor fully absent. In the mist, sounds change. They become muffled and close. A duck's call, which would normally carry across the open water, sounds intimate and near. The splash of a fish jumping is softened. Everything draws inward. The world becomes smaller, cozier, as if the lake has wrapped itself in a blanket and is whispering rather than speaking. Autumn brings color to the trees around mirror lakes, and the reflections become almost too beautiful to believe. A maple tree turns scarlet, its leaves so bright they seem to burn. In the lake, this tree appears again, every leaf reflected with perfect accuracy. The red in the water is sometimes even more intense than the red in the tree because the water adds depth to the color, layers it, gives it a richness that the air cannot provide. When leaves fall from these autumn trees, they drift down to the water and float there. Some are yellow, some orange, some deep burgundy. They collect on the surface, creating patterns, small rafts of color that drift slowly with the gentlest currents. Each floating leaf has a reflection beneath it, and together they make a double display, as if the lake is creating art from what the trees have released. The water level of mirror lakes changes with the seasons. In late summer, after months without much rain, the water might be lower, revealing rocks and roots that are usually hidden. The lake draws back into itself, becoming smaller, but no less perfect in its reflection. The shoreline shifts, creating new beaches of smooth pebbles, new places where plants can take hold temporarily before the water rises again. When rain comes to a mirror lake, it changes everything. The first drops hit the surface and create rings, perfect circles expanding outward. Then more drops fall and more, until the entire surface is alive with overlapping rings, a complex pattern of motion that never stops, never settles. The mirror is broken, but beautifully so. The reflection becomes fractured, impressionistic. You can still see the sky and trees and the water, but now they're made of moving pieces, shifting and reforming with each new raindrop. Heavy rain creates a sound on the water, a soft rushing that blankets everything else. It's a sound that surrounds you, that comes from all directions at once. If you stood at the edge of the lake during a rain, you'd hear this sound. Feel the drops on your skin. Watch the surface dance with impact after impact. And you might feel grateful for it, this bringing of water to water, this renewal. Please check out our full playlist for more restful nature stories that can guide you towards sleep. After the rain passes, there's a period of transition. The drops become less frequent, then stop altogether. The surface of the lake, which was so active with motion, begins to calm. The circles slow, grow smaller, fade away. The water smooths itself out, healing from the disturbance, finding its way back to stillness. And then, gradually, the mirror returns. The reflection reassembles itself, sky reappearing, clouds settling back into place, the world doubled once more. Some mirror lakes are home to loons, those diving birds with haunting calls. A loon sits on the water like a small black and white boat, low and sleek. When it decides to dive, it slips beneath the surface so smoothly there's barely a ripple. One moment the bird is there, and the next it's gone, vanished into the depths. It can stay underwater for a long time, swimming with powerful strokes, chasing fish, and then it resurfaces somewhere else entirely, emerging with a shake of its head, water droplets flying from its feathers. At night, the loon's call travels across a mirror lake with an eerie beauty. It's a sound like laughter mixed with crying, like loneliness turned into music. The call echoes off the surrounding hills and comes back, layered, loon talking to loon, or perhaps loon talking to its own echo, creating a conversation across the water. It's a sound that speaks of wild places, of lakes that humans rarely touch. The moon has a special relationship with mirror lakes. When the moon is full, it rises above the horizon and immediately appears in the water as well. Two moons, one climbing the sky, one hanging in the depths. The moonlight spreads across the lake's surface in a path, a bright road that seems to lead from the shore out to infinity. This path moves and shimmers, never quite solid, never quite still, even on the calmest night. Beneath the moonlight, the lake takes on a silvery quality. The darkness is not complete. There's enough light to see by, a soft illumination that makes everything mysterious and gentle. The trees along the shore become silhouettes, dark shapes against a lighter sky, and in the water they appear again as darker patches within the silver. Everything is simplified, reduced to shapes and tones, quiet and dreaming. Beavers build near mirror lakes sometimes, though they prefer lakes with inlets and outlets, places where water flows. When beavers are present, you might see their lodge, a dome of sticks and mud rising from the water near the shore. At dusk, a beaver emerges from the lodge and swims out across the lake, its head creating a small V-shaped wake. This V is the only disturbance on the water, a subtle mark of the beaver's passage. The animal is on its way to find food, to cut down a young tree or gather bark, doing the work of being a beaver with focused purpose. The trees that beavers cut down fall with a crash that echoes across the water. But after that moment of noise, silence returns. The beaver sets to work stripping the bark, eating it methodically. The sound is a soft gnawing, rhythmic and patient, and the lake continues its reflection, undisturbed by the beaver's industry, holding the image of the stars and moon, even as the beaver transforms the shoreline, one tree at a time. Water beetles skate across the surface of mirror lakes on legs designed to distribute their weight so perfectly they never break through. To a water beetle, the surface of the lake is a floor, solid and dependable. It runs across this floor on invisible feet, hunting for prey, exploring its territory. From below, a fish looking up might see the beetle's feet making tiny dimples in the surface, 4 or 6 small depressions that move together across the silvery underside of the water. Some mirror lakes are so remote that they see few human visitors. These lakes exist in their own time, unchanged by the rush of the modern world. The seasons come and go, ice forms and melts, trees grow older, and the lake reflects it all, patient, accepting, present. In these places you can feel what the earth was like before cities, before roads, when silence was the natural state, and the only sounds were wind and water and the voices of animals. If this is helping you relax, I'd love to know. Your comments and likes mean the world and help others find this peaceful space. Even in places where people do visit mirror lakes, there's often a quality of reverence. Something about seeing the world doubled makes people quiet. They speak in softer voices. They move more carefully. The lake teaches a kind of respect, asks for gentle presence. And people respond to this, often without realizing why. They simply feel that this is a place where loud behavior doesn't belong. Photographers love mirror lakes. They come in the early morning or late evening seeking the perfect light. They set up their cameras on tripods at the water's edge and wait for the moment when everything aligns. The sky, the reflection, the stillness. What they're trying to capture is a feeling as much as an image. They want to hold on to that sense of doubled reality, that piece of seeing the world reflect itself perfectly. But a photograph can never quite capture what it feels like to stand beside a mirror lake in person. The coolness of the air, the way it touches your face, the smell of water and earth, the sense of space around you, the tiny sounds, a bird far away, the lapping of the smallest wave, the feeling in your chest as you breathe, taking in this quietness and letting it settle into your body. These things exist only in the moment, only in the presence of the lake itself. Children who visit mirror lakes often become very still. They stand at the edge and look down into the water, amazed by the reflection. They see the sky beneath their feet, and it confuses and delights them. Some children will crouch down and try to touch the reflected clouds, reaching into the water with their small hands. And they discover that the clouds disappear when touched, that the reflection breaks apart and then slowly comes back together after they pull their hands away. Stones thrown into a mirror lake create a specific kind of disruption. The stone arcs through the air and hits the water with a plunk. Rings spread outward from the point of impact, moving across the surface in perfect circles. These rings disturb the reflection, but in an organized way. The image of sky and trees doesn't disappear. It just becomes fragmented, broken into moving pieces. And as the rings expand and eventually fade, the reflection repairs itself, as it always does. Some mirror lakes are fed by waterfalls, though the waterfalls are often small and gentle rather than powerful. The water tumbles down rocks and into the lake, creating a constant soft sound like distant conversation. Where the waterfall meets the lake, there's a small area of turbulence, of broken water and spray. But this turbulence is contained, limited to just that one spot. A few feet away, the lake has already returned to calmness, to reflection. The rocks over which these waterfalls flow become coated in moss and algae, turning them dark and slippery. Water runs over them in thin sheets, finding every groove and channel. The rocks are shaped by this constant flow, worn smooth over decades and centuries. They become part of the waterfall's music, each one adding its own note to the sound. In places where mirror lakes form in volcanic calderas, the collapsed centers of old volcanoes, the water is often extraordinarily deep and clear. These lakes have no inlet or outlet. They're filled entirely by rain and snow, and they lose water only to evaporation. Because no streams flow into them, they carry no sediment, nothing to cloud the water. You can look down into these lakes and see depth upon depth, the water fading into darkness far below. The color of these volcanic mirror lakes is often a startling blue, not the pale blue of shallow water, but a deep, rich blue that seems to come from within the water itself. This blue is the color of purity, of water that has nothing dissolved in it, nothing suspended. It's water as close to H2O as you can find in nature, and this water reflects the sky with such clarity that the division between water and air sometimes seems to vanish. If you haven't already, check out our playlist for more journeys like this one, each one a gentle path to rest. Otters play in some mirror lakes, sliding down muddy banks and splashing into the water. Otters are joyful creatures, always seeming to enjoy themselves. They chase each other in spirals, diving and surfacing, creating temporary chaos on the lake's surface. Their play breaks the mirror into 1,000 moving pieces. But even in the midst of this activity, there's a rightness to it. The otters belong to the lake. Their energy is part of the lake's life, part of its wholeness. When otters rest, they often float on their backs in the water, their paws folded on their chests. They drift like this, eyes closed, trusting the water to hold them. And the lake does hold them, supporting their weight effortlessly, rocking them with the gentlest motion. An otter floating on a mirror lake is one of nature's perfect images of relaxation, of surrender to the moment. The insects that live around mirror lakes are food for many creatures. Swallows swoop and dive above the water, catching flying insects in midair with incredible precision. The swallow's flight is a dance of sharp turns and sudden changes of direction, all happening at high speed. They skim close to the water's surface, sometimes dipping down to take a drink while still flying, creating the briefest ripple with their beaks. Dragonflies rest on reeds and branches, their wings spread wide to catch the sun. A dragonfly's wings are transparent, except for the delicate network of veins that supports them. When light passes through these wings, it creates subtle patterns, tiny rainbows that shift as the angle changes. The dragonfly sits motionless, letting its wings dry, letting the sun warm its body. Then it takes off again, a helicopter of the insect world, hovering and darting with impossible agility. The reeds where dragonflies perch grow in thick stands along the shallow edges of mirror lakes. These reeds are tall and slender, with long leaves that rustle in the slightest breeze. They create a buffer between land and water, a transition zone where the lake gradually becomes shore. In summer, the reeds flower, sending up brown seed heads that eventually burst open, releasing fluffy seeds that drift on the wind like snow. Between the reed stems, the water is often slightly warmer than the open lake. The sun heats this shallow water, and it becomes a nursery for small fish and tadpoles. They hide among the stems, protected from larger predators. The water here is busy with tiny movements, minnows darting, water striders skating, beetles diving. It's a miniature world, full and complex, existing right at the lake's edge. Tadpoles gather in these warm shallows by the hundreds. They're like small, dark commas swimming through the water, each one a future frog waiting to transform. They feed on algae, scraping it from rocks and plants with their small mouths. As they grow, they develop legs, first the back legs, then the front ones. Their tails shrink, and one day each tadpole hauls itself out of the water onto a rock or plant stem and becomes a frog, leaving the lake behind for a life split between water and land. The transformation from tadpole to frog is one of nature's most remarkable changes. It happens slowly and then all at once. The tadpole, which could only live in water, becomes a frog which breathes air and can leap across the ground. But the frog never fully leaves the water behind. It returns to lay eggs, to sing, to cool itself. The mirror lake remains its true home, the place it comes from and returns to. In some mirror lakes, especially those in tropical or subtropical regions, lotus flowers bloom. The lotus is one of the most beautiful flowers in the world. It rises from the mud at the bottom of the lake on a long stem, and the flower opens above the water's surface. The petals can be white or pink, perfectly formed, each one smooth and clean, despite coming from the muddy depths. The lotus teaches a lesson about beauty arising from darkness, about purity that doesn't require perfect conditions. The lotus leaves are large and round, coated with a substance that makes water bead up and roll off. After a rain, these leaves hold perfect spheres of water, like liquid jewels sitting on green platforms. The water droplets catch the light and shine. They roll around when the leaf moves, gathering dust and debris as they roll, cleaning the leaf. Then they drop off into the lake, and the leaf is clean again, ready for the next rain. I hope you're finding rest in these words. If you are, a like would mean so much and helps this channel continue. At the center of a lotus flower is a seed pod that looks like a shower head with holes where the seeds develop. When the seeds are mature, this pod turns brown and dries out. Eventually, it releases the seeds into the water. Lotus seeds are remarkable. They can remain viable for hundreds of years, waiting in the mud for the right conditions to sprout. Some seeds found in ancient lake beds have sprouted after centuries of dormancy, growing into plants that are genetically identical to lotuses that bloomed in the distant past. Fish that live in mirror lakes have adapted to a life of quiet. They move through the water with minimal effort, using subtle movements of their fins and tails. A trout hovering in the current barely seems to move at all, yet it stays in exactly the same position, facing upstream, waiting for food to drift down to it. This hovering is possible because of the trout's perfect understanding of water, its ability to read the flow and use it, rather than fight against it. When a fish jumps from a mirror lake, it's often a surprise. The surface is calm, and then suddenly there's an explosion of water and a flash of silver as the fish arcs through the air. It happens so quickly, you barely see it. The fish is trying to catch an insect. Or perhaps it's just expressing some fish version of joy. It falls back into the water with a splash, and rings spread outward from where it re-entered. The lake absorbs the disturbance and returns to calm. The bottom of a mirror lake is a world of its own. In the deeper parts, light barely penetrates, and the water is cold year-round. Here, things move slowly. Snails crawl across rocks, taking hours to travel a few inches. Small worms burrow in the sediment. Crayfish hide under stones, coming out at night to scavenge. It's a peaceful darkness, a place where time seems to stretch and slow. In shallower areas, the bottom is visible from the surface when the water is calm. You can see every stone, every shell, every piece of driftwood. The water acts like a lens, magnifying things slightly, making them seem closer than they are. If you tried to reach down and grab a stone that looks near the surface, you'd find it's deeper than you thought. The water tricks the eye, bending light in ways that change perception. Some stones on the bottom of mirror lakes are covered with a thin coating of calcium carbonate, deposited by the water over time. This coating is white or cream-colored, and it makes the stones look smooth and clean. These coated stones are called lake stones or marl stones, and they're unique to certain types of lakes with specific water chemistry. They're beautiful in a quiet way, like eggs or bones, pale and simple. Small fish sometimes create nests on the bottom of mirror lakes. A male bluegill, for instance, will use his fins to sweep a circular area clean of sediment, creating a shallow depression in the sand or gravel. This is where the female will lay eggs. The male guards this nest fiercely, chasing away any other fish that come too close. He fans the eggs with his fins to keep fresh water flowing over them, giving them oxygen. This dedication continues for days, until the eggs hatch and the tiny fish swim away. The cycle of seasons affects the very structure of water in a mirror lake. In summer, the water forms layers. The warm water stays on top because it's less dense, and the cold water sinks to the bottom. Between these layers is a zone called the thermocline, where the temperature drops rapidly. Fish often hang out in or near this zone, where they can move up into warmth or down into coolness, depending on their needs. In autumn, as the air cools, the surface water cools too. Eventually, it becomes the same temperature as the deeper water, and when this happens, the lake turns over. The layers mix. Water from the bottom comes to the surface, bringing nutrients with it. Water from the top sinks down, bringing oxygen. This turnover is vital for the lake's health. It redistributes resources, giving the entire lake what it needs to prepare for winter and the coming spring. Our playlist holds many more of these gentle journeys. Each one is crafted to bring you peace and help you drift towards sleep. Winter freezing happens from the top down. Ice forms on the surface first, usually on the coldest, stillest nights. The first ice is thin and clear, so transparent you might not notice it until you see the way it changes the reflection, making it slightly more solid-looking, less liquid. This ice thickens as the cold continues, growing downward into the water, one layer at a time. The ice acts as insulation, protecting the water beneath from the extreme cold of the air. Under several feet of ice, the water remains liquid, cold, but not frozen. Life continues down there in a slowed, quieter way. Fish swim in the dark beneath the ceiling of ice. They eat less, move less, conserve energy, but they're alive, waiting for spring. Sometimes, when ice forms very quickly on a mirror lake, it freezes so smoothly and clearly that you can still see the reflection of the sky trapped in it. The ice becomes a frozen mirror, solid sky. You can walk on it and look down through it at the water below and up through it at the sky above. And for a moment, you might feel like you're suspended in space, surrounded by transparency. The sound of walking on thick, clear ice is unlike any other sound. Each step creates a deep boom that travels through the ice, echoing beneath your feet. Sometimes the ice sings, a strange, almost electronic sound as it expands or contracts with changing temperature. These sounds can be eerie if you don't know what they are. But once you understand, they become part of the lake's winter music, part of its cold season voice. Cracks sometimes form in the ice, running across the surface in long, jagged lines. These cracks happen when the ice expands or when pressure builds up somewhere. They appear suddenly, shooting across the frozen lake with a sound like thunder. But the cracks don't necessarily mean the ice is weak. Often, the ice is actually stronger after cracking because the crack releases tension. The lines remain visible, though, dark marks in the white or transparent surface, mapping the stresses the lake has endured. Snow that falls on frozen mirror lakes creates a new surface, white and soft. This snow muffles sound even further than the ice alone. It covers the transparency, hiding what's beneath. A frozen lake covered in snow becomes a flat, white plain, beautiful in its simplicity, but missing the doubled world of reflection that defines the lake in other seasons. The snow is temporary, though. Wind will blow it into drifts, or sun will melt it, and the ice will shine through again. In late winter, when the days begin to lengthen and the sun climbs higher, the ice weakens. It becomes honeycombed, full of tiny holes and channels as it begins to melt from within. This honeycombed ice is treacherous. It looks solid, but can barely support weight. The lake is preparing to return to liquid, to shake off its winter armor and become a mirror again. The final breakup of ice on a mirror lake can happen quickly. A warm wind blows for a few days. The ice becomes thin and rotten. Then, almost overnight, it breaks into pieces that float on the newly opened water. These ice pieces melt rapidly in the spring sun, shrinking and disappearing. And one morning, the lake is free again, reflecting clouds, ready for another season. The first reflection after the ice melts is special. The water is fresh and cold, full of oxygen. It's so clear that the reflection seems almost sharper than reality. Every tree branch, every stone on the shore, every cloud appears in the water with perfect fidelity. It's as if the lake is celebrating its freedom, showing off its clarity, grateful to be liquid again and able to hold the image of the world. Spring brings new life to the Mirror Lake ecosystem in a rush. Insects emerge from larvae that have waited all winter. Frogs begin their singing. Birds return from their winter ranges. Turtles climb out to sun themselves on logs that just weeks ago were locked in ice. The lake becomes busy with activity, yet it maintains its essential character, the stillness that allows reflection, the quiet that invites peace. If you're still with me, thank you. If this is helping you relax, please consider leaving a like. It makes such a difference. Pollen falls on mirror lakes in spring, creating a yellow dust on the surface. This pollen comes from pine trees and other conifers that release it into the wind. The wind carries it far and wide, and some of it settles on the lake. There, it floats in a thin layer, creating patterns that swirl and shift with the slightest movement of water. The pollen doesn't harm the lake. It's just passing through, part of the tree's reproductive cycle, a brief visitor on the water's surface. When rain falls on this pollen layer, it washes it toward the shore, where it collects in yellow rings along the waterline. These rings mark the lake's boundary clearly, showing exactly where water meets land. After the pollen season passes, these rings fade, bleached by sun and washed away by waves. But while they last, they're a reminder of how connected the lake is to the forest around it. Algae blooms can occur in mirror lakes, especially in late summer when the water is warm and full of nutrients. These blooms turn the water slightly green, or sometimes create patches of color on the surface. Not all algae blooms are harmful. Many are simply part of the lake's natural cycle, providing food for zooplankton and other tiny creatures. The lake feeds itself this way, creating nutrition from sunlight and nutrients, supporting the web of life that depends on it. The clearest mirror lakes have very few nutrients. They're what scientists call oligotrophic, low in productivity. These lakes are often in rocky areas where there's little soil to wash into the water. Without many nutrients, there's little algae. And without algae, the water stays extremely clear. You can see down 30, 40, even 50 feet in these lakes. The water is almost like air, transparent, invisible except for the way it holds reflections and refracts light. Clouds drifting over a mirror lake create a constantly changing show. The reflection shifts moment by moment as the clouds move and change shape. A cloud that looks like a whale becomes a cloud that looks like a mountain, becomes a cloud that dissolves into wisps. And all of this happens twice, once in the sky, once in the water. If you watched for an hour, you'd never see the same reflection twice. It's always new, always now. Thunderstorms bring dramatic changes to mirror lakes. Before the storm arrives, you might notice a stillness, a heaviness in the air. The lake becomes very flat, very calm, as if it's holding its breath. Then the wind picks up and the surface begins to roughen. Waves form, small at first, then larger. The mirror shatters into motion. The reflection becomes impossible, lost in the movement of water. When lightning flashes over a mirror lake, it illuminates everything for a split second. The water, the surrounding trees, the clouds. And in that instant, you might catch a glimpse of the rain beginning to fall, each drop visible in the lightning's light. Thunder follows, rolling across the water, echoing off hills. The storm is powerful, but even in its power, it's part of the lake's story. One more thing the lake experiences and absorbs. Please take a moment to visit our playlist if you'd like. More peaceful nature stories to help you sleep and relax. After a storm passes, there's often a period of extraordinary beauty. The clouds begin to break apart, and shafts of sunlight pour through the gaps. These light beams, called crepuscular rays, seem to radiate from a point in the sky, spreading outward like spokes of a wheel. When they happen over a mirror lake, they appear in the reflection too, creating an almost symmetrical display of light. It's as if the sky has opened up and is pouring illumination down onto the water. The water, after a storm, is often slightly murky, stirred up by wind and rain. Sediment that was resting on the bottom has been suspended. Small debris, leaves, twigs, floats on the surface. But this murkiness is temporary. Over the next hours or days, the sediment settles again. The debris washes to shore or sinks. The lake clears itself, filtering its own water through the simple process of time and stillness. Eagles sometimes hunt at mirror lakes, especially lakes that have fish near the surface. An eagle will perch in a tall tree overlooking the water, watching with incredible vision. When it spots a fish, the eagle launches itself into the air, flying out over the lake. At the last moment, it extends its talons and plunges them into the water, grabbing the fish in a grip that doesn't release. Then it flies back to shore, fish in its grasp, to eat or to feed its young. The eagle's reflection appears in the lake as it flies, a dark shape moving across the water's surface, matching the bird's flight above. For a moment, there are two eagles, one in air and one in water, both hunting, both powerful. Then the reflection breaks apart when the bird strikes the water, and there's only the real eagle flying away, successful in its hunt, carrying life in its talons. Herons are more patient hunters than eagles. A great blue heron will stand in the shallows of a mirror lake, absolutely motionless, for 10 minutes or longer. It's so still that it becomes part of the scenery, just another vertical element among the reeds. The heron is waiting for a fish to swim within striking distance. When one does, the heron's head shoots forward with incredible speed, its sharp beak stabbing into the water and emerging with the fish impaled. The heron tosses the fish up and catches it headfirst, then swallows it whole. You can see the lump of the fish moving down the heron's long neck as it descends into the bird's body. Afterward, the heron resumes its position, motionless again, ready to wait as long as necessary for the next meal. This patience is remarkable. The heron teaches a lesson about stillness, about the power of waiting, about trusting that what you need will come if you simply remain present. Some mirror lakes are surrounded by mountains that still have active glaciers. These glaciers feed the lakes with meltwater throughout the summer. The water that comes from glaciers is milky with rock flour, extremely fine sediment created by the glacier grinding against bedrock. This sediment gives the water a turquoise or milky green color that's distinctive and beautiful. The lake takes on an otherworldly appearance, less like water and more like liquid light. Even with this sediment, these glacial lakes can still create reflections, though the reflections have a softness to them, a dreamlike quality. The mountains appear in the water not as sharp images, but as gentle suggestions, shapes, and colors that echo what's above without reproducing it exactly. These lakes show that reflection doesn't require perfect clarity. Even cloudy water can hold beauty, can show the world back to itself in a different way. The glaciers themselves are often visible from these lakes, white and blue rivers of ice clinging to the mountainsides. They move slowly downhill, creeping forward inches or feet per year. Sometimes you can hear them, the crack and groan of ice shifting, the crash of ice falling from the glacier's face into the valley below. These sounds travel across the lake, reminders that the landscape is still being shaped, still changing, still in motion, even though it appears timeless. Wildflowers bloom along the shores of high mountain mirror lakes in late spring and early summer. The growing season is short at high elevation, so the plants have to hurry. They push up through the ground as soon as the snow melts, and within weeks they're flowering. Bright splashes of color against gray rock and green alpine meadow, lupines, paintbrush, alpine forget-me-nots, tiny white saxifrages. Each flower is small but vivid, designed to attract the few pollinators that make it to these high, cold places. These flowers don't reflect in the lake in the same way that trees do, because they're low to the ground and far from the water's edge. But they're part of the lake's world nonetheless. They draw their moisture from the same sources, snowmelt and rain. They exist because the lake exists, because this place is wet enough to support them. And when the flowers die back at the end of summer, their seeds scatter, some falling into the lake, becoming part of the sediment, eventually feeding the nutrients that support algae and plankton. Your presence here means so much. If you're finding peace in this journey, a like helps others discover this calm too. At the highest elevations, some mirror lakes freeze for most of the year. They might be liquid for only 2 or 3 months in summer, and even then, Ice can form on their surfaces on cold nights. These are harsh environments, places where life has to be incredibly resilient to survive. Yet even here, there is life. Tiny organisms live in the lake, adapted to the cold. Fish might not be able to survive, but smaller creatures do. Amphipods, insects, microscopic life that thrives in conditions that seem impossible. When you visit a high alpine mirror lake in summer and see it reflecting the sky and mountains, you're seeing something temporary, a moment of liquid beauty in a place that's usually frozen. It's like catching a glimpse of something rare and precious, knowing that in a few weeks, the ice will return and the reflection will be replaced by a frozen surface. This temporariness makes the reflection even more valuable, even more worth pausing to appreciate. The air at high altitude has a different quality than the air at lower elevations. It's thinner, which means there's less oxygen in each breath. But it also means the light is different, more intense, less filtered by atmosphere. Colors seem brighter, shadows are sharper, and the reflections in a high mountain mirror lake have a clarity that's almost shocking. Every detail is visible, every rock on the distant peak, every shade of color in the sky. Some people feel a spiritual connection to mirror lakes, especially these high mountain ones. There's something about being in a place so remote and so beautiful that opens the heart, the silence, the majesty of the surroundings, the perfect reflection. It all combines to create a sense of reverence. People stand at the shore and feel small in the best possible way, aware of being part of something vast and ancient and ongoing. Prayer flags sometimes flutter near mirror lakes in places where Buddhist or Tibetan traditions are present. These flags are strung on lines between poles or trees, and they bear prayers and mantras printed on fabric. The wind blows through them, and the tradition says this carries the prayers out into the world. The flags fade in the sun and weather, and this fading is intentional. It represents the impermanence of all things. Near a mirror lake, these flags add color and movement to the stillness, a counterpoint to the water's calm. Meditation becomes easier beside a mirror lake. The stillness of the water seems to invite inner stillness. If you sat beside the water and closed your eyes, you could listen to the small sounds, the lap of tiny waves, the breeze in the trees, the call of a bird. You could feel your breath moving in and out. You could let your thoughts drift like clouds across the sky, appearing and disappearing, while underneath it all, something steady and calm remains, like the lake beneath all its changing reflections. The concept of reflection itself is worth contemplating. A mirror lake shows you the world, but reversed. Right becomes left. Up becomes down. What's far appears close to the water's surface. This reversal doesn't change the essential nature of what's being reflected, but it offers a different perspective. Maybe this is part of what makes reflection so fascinating. It's the same, yet different, familiar, yet strange, real, yet also somehow apart from reality. Make sure to check our full playlist for more of these restful journeys through nature's quiet places. Photographers trying to capture mirror lakes often use long exposures, keeping the camera's shutter open for many seconds or even minutes. During a long exposure, anything that moves becomes blurred or vanishes, while anything still remains sharp. So the clouds might blur into streaks across the sky and water, but the mountains and trees stay crisp. Or the photographer might time it so that the water becomes perfectly smooth, any small ripples averaging out into perfect flatness. These photographs capture something beyond what the eye sees in a single moment. They show time itself condensed into one image. But even the best photograph can't fully convey what it's like to be present at a mirror lake. The three-dimensional space, the wraparound quality of being surrounded by reflection and reality at once. The temperature of the air, the smell of water and pine, the way your own breathing seems to slow and deepen in response to the stillness, the awareness of your body standing on solid ground while the reflection floats on a liquid. These are things that exist only in direct experience. Some mirror lakes have legends attached to them, stories of spirits or gods dwelling in the depths, tales of people seeing visions in the reflections or hearing voices from the water. These legends arise naturally in places of great beauty and mystery. Humans have always told stories about the places that move them, the places that feel somehow more than ordinary. A mirror lake with its doubled reality and profound quiet is exactly the kind of place that invites storytelling. Whether or not you believe in spirits, there's something true in these legends. The truth is that these places do hold power, not supernatural power necessarily, but the power of beauty, of peace, of perspective. They change how we feel, how we think. They give us access to states of mind that are difficult to reach in ordinary circumstances. In that sense, the legends are pointing to something real, even if they express it in mythical terms. Indigenous peoples who have lived near mirror lakes for generations often have deep knowledge of these places. They know when the lake freezes and thaws. They know what plants grow where. They know the fish and animals that depend on the water. This knowledge isn't written in books. It's passed down through generations, taught by elders to children, embedded in stories and practices. It's a living relationship with the land and water, sustained over centuries. These indigenous traditions often include practices of gratitude and respect toward the lake. Before taking fish, an offering might be made. When using water, thanks might be given. The lake is seen not as a resource to be extracted from, but as a living entity deserving of honor. This worldview creates a very different relationship with nature than the one common in industrial societies. It's a relationship based on reciprocity rather than domination, on partnership rather than exploitation. Modern environmental science is increasingly recognizing what indigenous peoples have always known, that ecosystems are interconnected, that taking without giving back leads to depletion, that sustainability requires respect. A mirror lake exists within a web of relationships. It depends on the health of the forest around it, on the watershed that feeds it, on the atmosphere that brings rain. When any part of that web is damaged, the lake suffers. Protecting the lake means protecting everything connected to it. Climate change is affecting mirror lakes around the world. Higher temperatures mean less snow in winter, which means less meltwater in spring and summer. Some lakes are shrinking. Others are warming, which changes the species that can survive in them. Glaciers that feed lakes are retreating. These changes are happening faster than lakes can adapt, faster than the organisms that depend on lakes can adjust. It's a reminder that these places, which seem so permanent and unchanging, are actually fragile. Yet, even in the face of these challenges, mirror lakes continue to offer what they've always offered: moments of peace, reflections of beauty, a sense of connection to something larger than ourselves. They remind us what we're trying to protect and why it matters. Every time you stand beside a mirror lake and feel that sense of calm, that wonder at seeing the world doubled, you're experiencing something worth preserving for future generations. I hope this is bringing you the rest you need. If it is, your like and comment would mean the world. Conservation efforts around mirror lakes often focus on protecting the watersheds, the land that drains into the lake, keeping forests intact, preventing pollution from entering streams, managing how much water is taken out of the system. These efforts require cooperation between many different groups: government agencies, private landowners, indigenous communities, environmental organizations. When they work together well, lakes can be protected. When they don't, lakes decline. Some mirror lakes are designated as wilderness areas or protected parks, which means development is restricted around them. These protections help ensure that the lakes remain pristine, that their reflections stay clear. But protection on paper isn't enough. It requires enforcement, funding, and a shared commitment to keeping these places wild. It requires people who care enough to defend the lakes when they're threatened. Individual actions matter too when you visit a mirror lake. Practicing leave no trace principles helps preserve it. Pack out everything you pack in. Stay on designated trails. Don't disturb wildlife. These simple actions, multiplied across thousands of visitors, make the difference between a lake that stays healthy and one that degrades under human pressure. But you don't have to physically visit a mirror lake to care about it. Simply knowing these places exist, holding them in your awareness, can be valuable. The world is richer because mirror lakes exist, because somewhere right now, water is reflecting sky with perfect stillness. That knowledge can be a source of comfort, a reminder that beauty and peace are real, that they persist even in troubled times. Returning to our experience of mirror lakes on a personal level, these places teach us about the nature of mind. The mind, like a lake, can be turbulent or calm. When it's turbulent, filled with worry and distraction, it can't reflect clearly. Thoughts and emotions churn like waves. But when the mind settles, when it becomes still like a mirror lake, it can reflect reality more accurately. It can see clearly. This is what meditation aims for. A mind like a still lake, able to reflect without distortion. The practice of simply observing a mirror lake is itself a kind of meditation. You watch the reflection. You notice the tiny changes, a ripple, a shift in light. You see how even the stillest water is never completely static. There's always subtle movement, always change. And yet, the overall quality of reflection persists. This is like life itself, constantly changing in the details, but maintaining certain constants. Change and stability exist together, always. When you breathe beside a mirror lake, you might notice that your breath begins to match the rhythm of the place. Slow and steady, deep and easy. The lake teaches you to breathe this way without words, just through its presence. Your nervous system responds to the stillness, shifting into a more relaxed state. Your heart rate slows. Your muscles release tension you didn't know you were holding. This is the gift the lake gives freely to anyone who pauses to receive it. Please visit our playlist when you have time. It's filled with more gentle nature stories designed to help you rest. Artists have tried for centuries to capture mirror lakes in paintings. The challenge is immense. How do you paint water that reflects sky so perfectly it seems to become sky? How do you show that doubling without making the painting confusing? The best artists find ways to distinguish the reflection from the reality while showing their profound connection. They use subtle differences in color or tone. They show the way the reflection is slightly darker, or how it contains a bit more of the lake's own blue or green. Some of the most famous landscape paintings in history feature mirror lakes. These paintings endure because they capture something universal, that sense of peace and wonder we feel in the presence of perfect reflection. When you look at such a painting, even though it's just pigment on canvas, it can evoke the feeling of standing beside the actual lake. That's the power of art, to transport us, to give us access to experiences we might never have in person. Poetry, too, has been written about mirror lakes for as long as humans have had language. Poems that try to capture in words what paint captures in images, the stillness, the doubling, the sense of peace. Some of these poems are simple, just a few lines describing the scene. Others are complex, using the lake as a metaphor for consciousness or truth or beauty. All of them are attempts to hold on to something ephemeral, to make permanent something that exists only in the moment. But maybe the best response to a mirror lake isn't to create art about it, but simply to be present with it, to sit and watch, to let it work its magic on you without trying to capture it or explain it, to receive its gift of stillness without feeling the need to do anything with it, just to be there, breathing, watching, part of the scene, reflected in the water along with everything else. In this presence, this simple being, you become part of the lake's reflection yourself. If you stand at the water's edge, you appear in the lake, your shape, your colors, joined with the sky and trees and clouds. You're both observer and observed, both the one looking at the reflection and part of the reflection itself. This dual role is the human position in nature. We're part of it, yet we're also able to step back and contemplate it. The mirror lake makes this visible. Children seem to understand this intuitively. When a child sees their own reflection in a mirror lake, they often wave at it or make faces delighted by this other version of themselves floating in the water. They haven't yet learned to separate themselves from nature, to see themselves as outside of it. They know they're part of the whole picture, part of what the lake is reflecting. As we grow older, we often lose this knowing and have to find our way back to it. The seasons cycle endlessly around mirror lakes, each one bringing its gifts, spring with its renewal and busy energy, summer with its warmth and long days, autumn with its colors and cooling air, winter with its ice and stark beauty. These seasons pass over the lake year after year, century after century. The lake receives them all, reflects them all, endures through them all. If the lake could speak, what would it say? Perhaps it would say, I am here, I remain, I reflect what is without judgment, without preference. I am still when I can be, and I accept movement when it comes. I freeze and I thaw. I darken and I brighten. I am never exactly the same from one moment to the next, yet I am always myself. I am water in a basin of stone and earth, and I am a mirror for the sky. But the lake doesn't speak with words. It speaks with its presence, with its stillness. It offers itself as a gift to anyone who comes to its shore. It asks nothing in return, except perhaps to be left undamaged, to be allowed to continue its cycles, to keep reflecting the world for as long as mountains stand and rain falls and seasons turn. If you're still listening, thank you for being here. A like or comment helps this channel reach others who need this peace. There's something about water that draws humans. We evolved near water, depended on it for survival. Our bodies are mostly water. Maybe that's why being near a mirror lake feels so right, so necessary. It's like visiting a part of ourselves that we've externalized, seeing our own fluid nature reflected back to us in the lake's surface. We recognize ourselves in water, not as individuals, but as living beings, as part of the wet, flowing, cycling nature of life itself. The sound of water is inherently calming to human nervous systems. Even the quiet sound of a mirror lake, the smallest lapping of waves, the gentle movement in the reeds, triggers a relaxation response. It tells us at a deep level that we're in a safe place, a place where there's water to drink, where life is abundant. Our ancient ancestors would have sought out places like this, and we carry that seeking in our bones still. When you're stressed or anxious or overwhelmed, thinking of a mirror lake can help. You don't have to be physically present. You can close your eyes and imagine one. Picture the still water, see the reflection of clouds, feel the cool air, hear the quiet. Let your mind create the scene, and your body will respond. Your breathing will slow, your muscles will relax. The lake you create in your imagination has some of the same power as an actual lake, because the peace you're accessing isn't really in the lake, it's in you, and the lake just helps you find it. This is why practices like visualization and guided imagery work. The mind doesn't always distinguish clearly between imagined experience and real experience, at least in terms of the physiological response. When you vividly imagine being at a mirror lake, your nervous system reacts as if you're actually there. The calm becomes real, even though the lake is imagined. This is a tool you can use anytime, anywhere. The mirror lake is always available to you, carried in your own awareness, but there's also something irreplaceable about being at an actual mirror lake. The reality of it, the specific quality of the light, the particular birds calling, the exact temperature of the air, the surprising clarity of the reflection. Reality is always richer than imagination, more detailed, more full. So, while imagined lakes can help, there's also value in making the effort to visit real ones when you can. Every mirror lake is unique. Even lakes that seem similar will have differences. The shape of the surrounding mountains, the types of trees, the color of the water, the species of fish and birds. Part of the joy of visiting different mirror lakes is discovering these particularities, learning the character of each place. Some lakes feel friendly and welcoming, others feel remote and stern. Each one has its own personality, its own presence. Our playlist continues with many more peaceful journeys. Each one is an invitation to rest, to let go, to find calm. The best times to visit mirror lakes are often the transitions, dawn, dusk, the edges of seasons. These are when the light is most beautiful, when the reflections are most perfect. Dawn especially, before the wind has risen, when the world is just waking. The lake at dawn is a secret being revealed, something precious that exists for just a little while, before the day fully arrives and everything changes. If you could float in the center of a mirror lake, On a perfectly calm dawn, you would be surrounded by reflection. Below you, the reflected sky. Above you, the real sky. Around you on all sides, the reflection of the shore. You would be at the center of a complete sphere of image and reality, held in the embrace of water and air. It would be disorienting and beautiful. You might lose track of which way is up. You might feel like you're suspended in pure light. This experience of being surrounded by reflection is part of what makes mirror lakes so powerful. They create a complete world, a bubble of beauty and stillness that feels separate from ordinary life. When you're there, fully present, the rest of your life, your worries, your plans, your past and future, all of it can fall away. There's only the lake, the reflection, the now. This is a form of freedom, rare and valuable. Eventually, you have to leave. You can't stay at a mirror lake forever. Life calls you back. But you take something with you when you go. A memory, yes, but also more than that. A sense of what stillness feels like. A reminder that beauty exists. A knowing that peace is possible. These things stay with you, even when you're far from the water, even when you're back in the noise and rush of daily life. And you can return, not just physically, but in your mind. The mirror lake waits there in your memory, ready to offer its calm whenever you need it. You can close your eyes during a stressful moment and picture the still water, see the reflection of clouds, feel the cool air on your skin. The lake becomes a refuge you carry inside yourself, always accessible, always offering the same gift of peace. This inner lake you carry is as real as the physical lakes you've visited or seen in pictures. It's made of the same elements: your longing for peace, your appreciation of beauty, your need for stillness. You've built this lake in yourself through your attention to the real ones, through your willingness to be moved by them. And now, it's yours, a permanent part of your inner landscape. Some people create rituals around visiting mirror lakes. They might go at the same time each year to the same lake to mark the passage of time. They watch how the lake changes and how they themselves change. Maybe the trees have grown taller. Maybe the shoreline has shifted. Maybe they notice things they didn't see before, or see the same things with new eyes. The lake becomes a measuring stick for their own growth, a constant against which they can see their own changes. Others visit many different mirror lakes, collecting experiences the way some people collect stamps or coins. Each lake is a new treasure, a new variation on the theme of still water and perfect reflection. Over time, a rich library of lake memories builds up, each one unique, each one precious. Together they form a geography of peace, a map of places where calm can be found. Writers who visit mirror lakes often try to describe them in their journals or blogs or books. They reach for metaphors and comparisons. The lake is like a mirror, like glass, like a portal, like a window, like a lens. It's compared to the mind, to consciousness, to truth, to time suspended. These comparisons are all attempts to capture what makes the lake special, to pin down its essence in words. But the lake always exceeds the descriptions. It remains fundamentally itself, beyond language. Scientists study mirror lakes too, but in a different way. They measure water chemistry, test for pollutants, count species, take temperature readings at different depths. They core the sediment to read the lake's history going back thousands of years. They model how the lake will respond to different scenarios: more rain, less snow, warmer temperatures. Their work is crucial for understanding and protecting these places. Data and measurement complement the aesthetic and spiritual appreciation. We need both. Your continued presence here is a gift. If this brings you peace, sharing it with a like helps create more of these gentle spaces. The future of mirror lakes depends on choices being made now. Choices about carbon emissions and climate change. Choices about land use and watershed protection. Choices about how much water to extract and how to treat the water that remains. These aren't abstract policy questions. They're questions about whether places of profound beauty and peace will continue to exist for future generations. But even as we worry about the future, it's important to appreciate the present. Right now, mirror lakes exist. Right now, somewhere in the world, water is perfectly still, reflecting sky with stunning clarity. Right now, someone might be standing at a lake's edge, feeling their breath slow, their heart rate drop, their mind quiet. This present moment of peace is real and valuable. Regardless of what the future holds, you can contribute to the protection of mirror lakes, even if you never visit one. Supporting environmental organizations that work on water quality and habitat protection. Making choices in your own life that reduce your environmental impact. Teaching children to appreciate and respect nature. Voting for leaders who take environmental protection seriously. All of these actions, small and large, help ensure that mirror lakes endure. And you can also simply hold mirror lakes in your awareness. Let them matter to you. Care about them. Let their existence be a source of joy and hope. Know that the world contains places of pure beauty and profound peace. This knowing itself is valuable. It changes how you move through life, what you prioritize, how you treat the world around you. The relationship between humans and mirror lakes has existed for as long as humans have existed. Our ancestors stood at the edges of these lakes thousands of years ago, seeing the same reflections we see now. They drank the water, caught the fish, marveled at the stillness. We're connected to them through this shared experience, through this common recognition of beauty. And future generations, we hope, will also stand at the edges of mirror lakes. They'll see the sky reflected in the water. They'll feel the peace that stillness brings. They'll be connected to us and to all the humans who came before through this shared experience. This continuity across time is part of what makes these places sacred. They're not just beautiful locations. They're links in a chain of human experience stretching from the deep past into the distant future. Every time you think of a mirror lake, every time you remember the calm you felt there or the beauty you saw, you're strengthening that chain. You're keeping the connection alive. You're passing it forward. And if you share the experience with others, through words, through pictures, through simple encouragement to go and see, you're helping ensure that the chain continues, that the recognition of beauty and peace is transmitted to the next generation. Make sure to explore our playlist for more of these peaceful journeys through the natural world. In a way, we're all reflections, just like the images in mirror lakes. We're reflections of the universe contemplating itself, of matter become conscious and able to appreciate beauty. When you look at a reflection in a lake, you're watching reality double itself. And when you appreciate that reflection, when you feel moved by it, you're participating in a profound mystery, the universe not just existing, but knowing it exists, not just being beautiful, but recognizing its own beauty. This might sound philosophical or abstract, but it's also very simple and direct. You stand at the edge of a mirror lake. You see the reflection. You feel something: peace, wonder, joy, calm. That feeling is real. That's the universe appreciating itself through you. You're the instrument through which the beauty becomes known. The lake needs you as much as you need the lake. The reflection needs someone to see it. Children understand this better than adults sometimes. A child doesn't wonder about the philosophy of reflection. They just see the upside-down world in the water and laugh with delight. That delight is pure and uncomplicated. It's a direct response to beauty, unfiltered by too much thinking. We can learn from that. We can let ourselves respond to mirror lakes with simple, uncomplicated appreciation. At the same time, the deeper understanding enriches the experience. Knowing about thermoclines and turnover, understanding how ice forms, recognizing the species of birds and trees. This knowledge adds layers to the appreciation. It's not either slash or feeling or thinking. It's both slash and. The fullest appreciation of a mirror lake includes immediate sensory response and informed understanding, childlike wonder, and adult awareness. The lake accepts all of it. The scientist with measuring equipment, the poet with notebook, the child throwing stones, the elder sitting quietly, the photographer with camera. The lake reflects all of them, holds all of them in its surface. It doesn't prefer one approach over another. It simply is, and it offers itself to whoever comes, in whatever way they're able to receive. Your own approach to mirror lakes is the right approach for you. Maybe you want to learn everything about them scientifically. Maybe you just want to sit and feel peaceful. Maybe you want to paint them or photograph them or write about them. Maybe you're content to carry them in memory and imagination and never seeing one in person. All of these are valid. All of these honor the lakes in their own way. The essential thing is the recognition that these places matter, that they offer something we need. We need beauty. We need peace. We need to see the world reflected back to itself, to see the doubling that reminds us everything is connected. Mirror lakes provide this. They're teachers, healers, sources of renewal. They ask nothing and give everything. When you feel stressed or fractured or overwhelmed, thinking of a mirror lake can help center you. The image of still water, perfect reflection, surrounded by natural beauty. This image has power. It's like a reset button for the nervous system. It says, stillness is possible. Peace exists. The world contains places where chaos hasn't reached, where things remain whole and beautiful. This isn't escapism. It's not running away from problems. It's accessing a resource that helps you deal with problems more effectively. When you've connected with that place of inner stillness that mirror lakes evoke, you're more capable of handling whatever life brings. You're more resilient, more centered, more able to respond rather than react. The peace you find at the lake, real or imagined, becomes a foundation you can build on. There's a reason why meditation teachers often use water as a metaphor. Let your thoughts be like waves on the surface, while the depths remain still. Be like a clear lake, reflecting everything without attachment. These metaphors work because they point to something we intuitively understand. We know what still water looks like. We can imagine it. And that imagination helps us access the state of mind we're seeking. I hope you're still with me, still breathing slowly, still moving toward rest. If this is helping, please leave a like to support this channel. The breathing exercise of imagining a mirror lake goes like this. Close your eyes. Picture a lake, perfectly still, reflecting the sky. As you breathe in, imagine breathing in the clarity of the water, the freshness of the air. As you breathe out, imagine any tension or worry dissolving like mist over the lake, evaporating in the morning sun. With each breath, you become more like the lake, still, clear, reflective. Your mind settles, your body relaxes. You find the stillness that was there all along, beneath the surface activity of thoughts and sensations. This exercise can be done anywhere, anytime. In a busy office, during a difficult conversation, in a crowded train. You can close your eyes for just a moment and return to the lake. Find that stillness. Let it support you. The lake is always there in your awareness, ready to offer its gift of calm. Some therapists use mirror lake imagery in their work with patients, particularly those dealing with anxiety or trauma. The image of the still lake becomes a safe place the patient can return to in their mind when things feel overwhelming. Go to the lake, the therapist might say. See the reflection, feel the peace. You're safe here, and in that imagined space, real healing can happen. The mind doesn't always distinguish between imagined safety and real safety. Both can produce the physiological changes that support healing. The lakes we carry inside us are as important as the physical lakes in the world. Maybe more important, because we have access to them always. The physical lake might be thousands of miles away, but the inner lake is right here, right now, available in an instant. This is one of the mind's great gifts, the ability to create internal resources, internal refuges, internal sources of strength and peace. And the more you visit actual mirror lakes, or spend time with them through pictures and videos and descriptions, the richer your internal lake becomes. You add details, the quality of the light, the specific birds, the texture of the rocks, the scent of the water. All of these sensory details make the inner lake more vivid, more effective as a resource. But you don't need perfect details. Even a simple, generic image of still water and sky can work. The power isn't in the details. It's in what the image represents. Stillness, reflection, peace, clarity. These qualities are what you're accessing when you think of a mirror lake. The specifics are just a way to help your mind get there. Please visit our playlist when you can. It's filled with more peaceful nature stories to guide you to rest. Native American traditions often speak of water as sacred, as a life giver that must be honored and protected. Mirror lakes fit perfectly into this worldview. They're not just resources to be used. They're beings to be respected, sources of wisdom and healing. When water is treated as sacred, it's protected. When it's seen only as a commodity, it's exploited. The difference in worldview leads to radically different outcomes for the lakes themselves. We can adopt this sense of sacredness regardless of our cultural background. We can recognize that these places are special, that they deserve protection and respect. We can approach them with gratitude, with humility, with a sense of being in the presence of something greater than ourselves. This attitude doesn't require any particular religious belief. It just requires openness to the possibility that some places are special, that beauty and peace have value beyond their usefulness to us. When you visit a mirror lake with this attitude, the experience deepens. You're not just a tourist checking something off a list. You're a participant in something meaningful. You're entering into relationship with the place. You receive its gift of beauty and peace, and you give back your appreciation, your respect, your commitment to help protect it. This reciprocal relationship is the healthy way for humans to interact with nature. Not domination, not exploitation, but partnership. We're part of nature, not separate from it. We depend on healthy ecosystems, clean water, stable climate. When we protect mirror lakes, we're protecting ourselves. When we honor them, we're honoring the source of our own life. The water cycle that feeds mirror lakes is the same water cycle that brings rain to crops, fills reservoirs, flows from taps. It's all connected. A mirror lake in the mountains is connected to the ocean, connected to clouds, connected to every watershed on Earth. Water doesn't stay in one place. It cycles endlessly, evaporating, condensing, falling, flowing, evaporating again. The water in a mirror lake today might be in the ocean next year, in a cloud the year after, in a different lake the year after that. This cycling is another form of reflection. Water reflecting itself through different states, different locations, different forms. Ice, liquid, vapor, lake, stream, rain, snow. Always water, always moving through its cycle, always transforming while remaining fundamentally itself. We can learn from this. We too cycle through states, active, resting, joyful, sad. But underneath all the changes, something essential remains. Like water, we're fundamentally ourselves through all transformations. Mirror lakes remind us of this continuity. The lake that froze in winter melts in spring, but it's still the same lake. The surface that was turbulent yesterday becomes still today, but it's still the same water, the same. We too have turbulent moments and still moments, frozen times and flowing times, but we remain ourselves throughout, continuous beneath the surface changes. And when we forget this continuity, when we get lost in the turbulence or frozen in fear, we can return to the image of the mirror lake. We can remember that stillness is possible, that the storms pass, that beneath the surface there's a constancy we can depend on. The lake becomes a teacher, showing us how to be present, accepting, reflecting what is without being disturbed by it. This teaching is subtle. The lake doesn't lecture. It simply demonstrates, through its being, how to exist in the world. Be still when you can. Accept movement when it comes. Reflect what's around you without judgment. Receive rain and sun with equal grace. Freeze when you must. Thaw when you can. Cycle through seasons without resistance. This is wisdom we can apply to our own lives. The Japanese concept of mizu no kokoro means mind like water, a mind that's calm and clear, like still water, able to reflect reality accurately. This concept points to mirror lakes as the ideal state of mind, not blank or empty, but clear and receptive, able to show things as they are, not distorting, not obscuring, just reflecting with perfect honesty. Developing this mind like water is a lifelong practice for many people. It's not something you achieve once and then you're done. It's something you return to again and again. The mind becomes turbulent and you practice letting it settle. The mind becomes clouded and you practice letting the sediment sink, the water clear. The mirror lake is both the model and the practice space. You imagine it, you embody it, you become it, gradually, over time. If you're finding comfort in this journey, a like would mean everything. It helps others find this peace too. In some Buddhist practices, students are instructed to meditate near water, a stream, a pond, or ideally a mirror-still lake. The water becomes both subject and teacher. You watch it. You notice how it behaves. You see the reflection forming and dissolving. You hear the gentle sounds. And gradually your mind begins to take on the qualities of the water. It slows. It stills. It reflects. Western psychology has also discovered the benefits of what's called blue space, environments near water. Studies show that being near water reduces stress, lowers blood pressure, improves mood, enhances creativity. The effects are measurable and significant. Mirror lakes are the ultimate blue space. Water at its most peaceful, most beautiful. The benefits of being near them are correspondingly profound. You can access some of these benefits even from a distance. Looking at pictures of mirror lakes, watching videos, listening to descriptions, all of these can produce measurable reductions in stress. The human nervous system responds to images of nature, especially water, with a relaxation response. It's built into us, perhaps because our ancestors depended on finding calm water for survival. Whatever the reason, it works. Nature imagery helps us feel calmer. This is why hospital rooms with views of nature help patients heal faster, why offices with plants and nature pictures have more productive, less stressed workers, why nature documentaries are popular. They provide the restorative benefits of nature without requiring travel. And among nature images, water is especially powerful. And among water images, still water, lakes and ponds, is most calming of all. Mirror lakes, then, are medicine, not in a metaphorical sense, but in a literal physiological sense. They change our body chemistry. They alter our nervous system state. They promote healing and well-being. This is not magic or superstition. It's biology. We evolved in natural environments. We're adapted to them. They're what our systems expect and need to function optimally. Modern life often deprives us of access to nature. We live in boxes, work in boxes, travel between boxes and metal boxes. We see mostly straight lines, artificial light, human-made environments. This deprivation has costs: increased anxiety, depression, physical health problems. Access to nature, even in small doses, helps counteract these costs. It restores something we're missing. Our full playlist offers many more of these healing journeys through nature. Each one is an invitation to rest and restore. You don't need to move to the mountains to get the benefits of mirror lakes. Even small amounts of nature exposure help. A plant on your desk, a picture of a lake on your wall, 5 minutes in a park. These micro doses of nature add up. They keep the connection alive. They remind your system what it needs and what's available. And of course, when you can, visiting actual natural places, including mirror lakes if possible, provides deeper benefits. The full sensory experience, the actual air and light and sound, the three-dimensional reality of being in nature rather than just seeing pictures of it. This is ideal. But don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Any nature connection is better than none. The practice of Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing, developed in Japan, emphasizes simply being present in nature without any goal, not exercising, not accomplishing anything, just being there, breathing the air, noticing the details, letting nature work on you rather than you working in nature. This practice can be adapted to mirror lakes, lake bathing, simply sitting at the edge, breathing, watching, being, no agenda, just presence. When you do this, time changes. The urgency that characterizes so much of modern life falls away. You're not trying to get somewhere or accomplish something. You're just here now with the lake. The lake isn't going anywhere. It's been here for thousands of years, will be here for thousands more. There's no hurry, no rush, just this moment stretching out, becoming spacious. In this spaciousness, things settle. The constant mental chatter quiets. The physical tension releases. You might notice you're breathing more deeply without trying to. Your shoulders drop. Your jaw unclenches. These are the signs of the relaxation response activating, the parasympathetic nervous system taking over from the sympathetic. You're shifting from stress mode to rest mode. This shift is one of the most valuable things mirror lakes offer. In our overstimulated, chronically stressed modern world, we need help shifting into rest mode. Many people are stuck in stress mode, their nervous systems constantly activated, even when there's no actual threat. Mirror lakes provide a powerful cue to the nervous system that it's safe to relax. The stillness, the beauty, the natural setting, all of these signal safety, allowing the system to shift. And once you've experienced this shift by a mirror lake, you can begin to recreate it in other settings. You learn what deep relaxation feels like. You practice accessing it. And gradually you get better at finding it even when you're not by the lake. The lake teaches you, and then you can use what you've learned anywhere. This is empowering. You're not dependent on being in a specific place to feel calm. You carry the capacity for calm within you, developed and strengthened by your time with mirror lakes, but ultimately belonging to you. The lake is a teacher and a catalyst, but you're the one who learns, who changes, who grows in capacity for peace. Think of all the people throughout history who have sat beside mirror lakes, who have found peace there. Ancient people, medieval people, people from every culture and continent, all of them seeking the same thing, a moment of respite, a sense of connection, a glimpse of beauty. You're part of that long lineage when you sit beside a mirror lake, or even when you think of one. You're joining with all those who came before, all those who also recognize the value of stillness and reflection. This sense of connection across time can be comforting. You're not alone in your seeking. The desire for peace, for beauty, for connection with nature, this is universal and timeless. Mirror lakes have been fulfilling this need for as long as humans have existed. They'll continue to fulfill it long after we're gone, for people not yet born. There's something eternal in that, something that transcends our individual lives. And yet, your experience of a mirror lake is also completely unique. No one else sees exactly what you see, feels exactly what you feel. The reflection at this moment is unlike any reflection before or after. The light, the clouds, the specific configuration of ripples or stillness, it's all temporary, unrepeatable. You're witnessing something that will never exist again in quite this way. This combination of the eternal and the momentary is part of what makes mirror lakes so moving. They're both permanent and temporary, both unchanging and constantly changing. The lake itself endures, but each moment at the lake is new. This paradox mirrors life itself. We endure through time, but each moment we experience is unique and fleeting. Please take a moment to visit our playlist for more restful journeys when you're ready. When you let this paradox sink in, when you really feel it, something opens up. An appreciation for the present moment, knowing it's temporary. A sense of peace, knowing the lake endures even as moments pass. You're held in something larger than yourself, yet fully present in this particular now. It's a rich feeling, layered and complex, yet simple and clear at the same time. Photographers know about this. They chase the perfect light, the perfect reflection, knowing it will last only minutes or seconds. They have to be present, alert, ready, but they also have to be patient, willing to wait for the moment to arrive. This combination of patience and alertness is a form of meditation. The camera is almost incidental. The real practice is the attention itself. You don't need a camera to practice this attention. You can simply look, simply be present with whatever the lake is offering in this moment. The way the light falls, the specific clouds reflected, the color of the water, the sounds of birds. All of it is available to you right now if you pay attention. And paying attention is a gift you give both to the lake and to yourself. When you really pay attention to a mirror lake, you notice things you'd otherwise miss. The tiny insects skating on the surface, the way one section of the lake might be slightly more rippled than another, creating a different quality of reflection. The subtle gradations of color in the water, from pale blue near the shore to deep blue-green in the depths. The particular way the trees on the opposite shore are reflected, each species with its distinctive shape, even when upside down. These details might seem small, but they add up to richness. Instead of a generic lake, you're seeing this lake, this specific place, with all its particularities. And the more you notice, the more there is to notice. Attention opens up worlds within worlds. What seemed simple and straightforward reveals itself to be complex and fascinating. This is true not just of lakes, but of everything. When we pay real attention, the world becomes more interesting, more beautiful, more worthy of appreciation. Mirror lakes teach us how to pay attention because they're beautiful enough to capture our interest, still enough that we can actually see the details without everything changing too fast. They're ideal subjects for the practice of attention. And attention, it turns out, is one of the most valuable skills we can develop. In our distracted age, the ability to focus, to be present, to really see what's in front of us. This is increasingly rare and increasingly valuable. Mirror lakes offer a training ground for attention, a place where the rewards for paying attention are immediate and beautiful. Your presence here is a gift. If this is bringing you peace, please share it with a like. Some people keep journals about their visits to mirror lakes. They write descriptions, note the weather, record their thoughts and feelings. Over time, these journals become precious, a record of moments of peace, a map of one's inner journey as reflected through encounters with still water. Reading back through such a journal can be moving. You see how you've changed, how your perception has deepened, how returning again and again to the same practice yields new insights. You could start such a journal, even if you've never visited a mirror lake physically. You can write about the mirror lakes you imagine, the ones you carry inside. Describe them in detail. Write about how they make you feel. Explore what they mean to you. This writing itself becomes a practice, a way of deepening your relationship with stillness and reflection. Or You might not write anything at all. You might simply sit and be present, letting the experience remain internal and unspoken. There's no right way to engage with mirror lakes. The important thing is the engagement itself, the willingness to be affected by beauty and stillness, to let these qualities into your life and consciousness. Some people create art inspired by mirror lakes, paintings, photographs, poems, music. The lake becomes a muse, a source of creative inspiration. The attempt to capture its beauty, while ultimately impossible, is valuable in itself. It forces attention to detail, demands presence, creates a record of the encounter. And sometimes, in the best artworks, something of the lake's essential quality does come through. Not the lake itself, but a hint, a suggestion, enough to evoke the feeling of being there. Digital technology now allows people to create and share images of mirror lakes globally. Someone in one part of the world can photograph a lake, and within minutes, people on the other side of the planet can see it. This sharing creates a kind of collective appreciation, a global community of people who recognize the value of these places. It helps build support for protecting them, ensures that their beauty is witnessed and celebrated. Let yourself drift now if you're ready to sleep. Or simply rest in this quiet space, enjoying the peace you've found. The mirror lakes of the world are there, reflecting the sky, constant and beautiful. And the mirror lake within you is there too, ready to offer its gifts whenever you remember to visit it. Thank you for traveling to these still waters with me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for allowing yourself this time of rest and renewal. May you carry the peace of mirror lakes with you, always. May you find stillness when you need it. May you reflect clearly and rest deeply. The water is still. The reflection is perfect. The world is doubled and beautiful, and you are part of it all, held in the embrace of quiet water and open sky, safe and peaceful and whole. Rest now, let go, float on these gentle waters. The mirror lake holds you. Sleep comes softly, like mist rising from water. Everything is well. Everything is still. Everything reflects. Breathe and rest and dream of still water.